Christine, thanks so much for doing this interview.
My pleasure.
All right, so I have a few questions.
Okie doke.
Okay, so you and your producing partner Pam are the first female producing team and the first indie art house team to receive the Irving G. Thalberg Award from the Academy. What was it like to get that call, and how do you feel about being recognized in this way?
I mean, getting the call was an extraordinary surprise, and it's being recognized by your peers is extraordinary. And we've both been Academy members for some time. I really believe in the mission of the Academy, and I believe in how the way it tries to promote the artistry of filmmaking across the board. So it's not something we took lightly at all. I mean, we were really blown away.
That's so great. It must have been, you must have been so happy. So between last year's 30th anniversary of Killer Films and now this one at MIFF, this retrospective at MIFF, you've had your career laid out back to back a few times in the past year. Has anything surprised you about how audiences are responding to your films now?
No, I mean, I guess one of the things I kind of love about our body of work is, I get stopped on the street like, I don't know, maybe every couple of weeks. And somebody says to me, they say, are you Christine? And I say yes. And then they say, you produced my favorite film. And I never know what movie they're gonna say. Sometimes it's Hedwig, sometimes it's Far From Heaven, sometimes it's Carol. Sometimes it's a movie that it never would have occurred to me would be somebody's favorite movie. Like a more obscure film or something that I don't think is so easy to see. And I guess I feel really lucky that we've gotten to make movies that can be somebody's favorite movie, because that's meaningful. That's a movie where somebody's like, this is gonna be part of my life. Like, I'm gonna watch this again and again.
Yeah, it's like a piece of their identity.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Do you have a favorite film of yours?
No.
It's like picking a favorite child.
Exactly.
Okay, so you grew up in New York with a lot of access to repertory and local cinemas. How much do you think that early in-person exposure shaped you? And this is the part I'm actually very interested in. How differently do you think someone your student's age or younger is getting exposed to film culture now?
I mean, in some ways, when I was growing up, our access to cinema was a little bit random, because we would just go to the local cinema and see whatever was there. I grew up on the Upper West Side. We could walk to the movies, and we did. Sometimes we would just go see things to go to a movie, and we didn't know what they were. The other thing is, we watched films on television. Like there was, and I think anyone who grew up in New York City will remember this, every day at like 4 or 5 o'clock, there was something called $1 Million Movie. And it was sometimes Casablanca, sometimes it was a Vincent Price horror film, sometimes it was, some obscure foreign film. You just didn't know what it was going to be. So we would just turn it on. There wasn't that much choice in television. So, and there wasn't the idea of like true children's programming. Not so much. I mean, there were Saturday morning cartoons for sure, but this idea that like there would be a whole separate kind of programming just for kids, not so much. Do my students now, how do they experience cinema? They can curate their experiences a lot more. And I don't think it's such a terrible thing that, some kid in Nebraska can watch all of Fassbinder's work. you know, that they can find that, you know, that kind of cinema that speaks to them. I think that's kind of great. But the sort of sense of discovery of just like, oh wow, like this just like I remember seeing, it's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. I remember seeing 400 Blows at a repertory cinema when I was 12 or 13 years old, just having like walked in and there it was, and being like, wow, this is a movie that really speaks to me. And I don't know if I would have found it any other way.
Just by chance.
Just by chance.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like nowadays, you know, it's like you can curate and you can be like, yes, I want to go and watch, you know, all of Todd Haynes' films, for example. But it's like, how are you supposed to know where to start?
That's right.
You know, I feel like that's the part where it's like you have all this knowledge, but then you don't know where to start.
That's right.
But yeah. Okay, so when you're first taking on a project, are you thinking about the film's life in the theatrical marketplace and how it'll fare week to week? Especially now when a theatrical release isn't necessarily a given, does that change how you approach different films?
I mean, we have to think to ourselves before we go down the road with any movie. We have to think, what is the path to get it made, and what is its life going to look like? So we do think about that. You know, it used to be very, I wouldn't say simple, but it used to be a little clearer, like this is a movie, this movie will have a theatrical life and this is why. And now there's all these gradations of like, it could maybe be on a streamer instead. And what does that mean? Like, what's the difference between a streaming film and a theatrical film, and what do those lives look like? So it's just more things to sort of put onto that pile to think about.
Yeah. If you can, what are the distinguishing factors between what you think is a streaming film and a theatrical film?
I don't know that I can answer that. I mean, I do know that for a theatrical film, it really is about like that big idea. Like when you take a film like Past Lives, for example, which is a good example to me, because the thing about Past Lives is almost everybody that sees it thinks it's about them. And some people think it's about them because they're like, I'm an immigrant and I understand what it's like to leave your country and to not feel completely at home in the country that you moved to. Other people are like, I had that experience, you know, with my wife, with my boyfriend, with, you know, where I made a choice and this is what happened. So it has that big idea that everyone can kind of relate to, and in some ways, I think that is what distinguishes a theatrical film.
Not necessarily big explosions or
not for
hot
us
movie stars.
But on the other hand, The Materialists, you know, which was a very successful film, it had 3 big movie stars in it, and I think, you know, would the film have been as successful without that? It was really designed for that in a lot of ways. So who knows?
Mm-hmm. I want to thank you for The Materialists because my friend and I saw that film and then we were like, what if we could be matchmakers? And then it took us like a few days, but we thought of 2 of our friends, like her friend and my friend, who would be perfect for each other.
And were they?
And they were, and they are, and they're still together.
That's great.
So thank you. Just a random question that popped into my head that I was curious about. What are some of the most expensive line items in a budget that people wouldn't necessarily think are that expensive?
It sort of depends where you're shooting. Sometimes it's locations. You know, like The Materialists is a good example because we really wanted to deliver an experience for the moviegoer that was like, you know, those high-end weddings, those, beautiful hotel rooms and a real New York experience. And those things are not inexpensive. So locations. Look, besides that, it's kind of like everything that you see on screen that looks expensive probably is.
So that beautiful blue dress that Dakota Johnson is
I'm
wearing.
sure.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure that was a fortune.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was like, I want that dress, but I definitely can't afford it. How do you think the way people have consumed and appreciate film as an art form has changed since you started your career? And how do you think it'll change in the next decade?
I have no idea how it'll change in the next decade, but I do think, we have to face the fact that people just don't go to the movies as much, and people consume more media either on their phones, their computers. I think there is a swing back for sure. I think a lot of young people, like when I go to my local repertory cinema, which is called the Metrograph in New York City, I'm usually the oldest person there. And I like that. I like that a lot of young people are like, this is how I want to spend my Saturday. This is what I want to do. I think it's great. So that's having a revival. But I do think that the way we consume media absolutely has an effect on the kind of movies we make, and how that's going to come home to roost over the next 10 years, I'm not sure.
So when you and Pam were starting Killer Films, you were taking risks like Hedwig and the Angry Inch, finding ways to work around the system to achieve a certain vision. Who do you see doing that now? Who are the younger voices in independent film that you're most excited about?
I'm not sure. I mean, I love Jane Schoenbrunn, and I love Celine Song. We made a movie with Aaron Schinberg called A Different Man. I think he's an extraordinary filmmaker. There's a lot of young producers who are figuring out different ways to tell stories, not just doing films, doing TV as well. And so, I think it's kind of an exciting time.
Yeah, I saw that you were moderating the conversation at Providence
with Jane and
Hannah. Yeah, that must have been an absolute hoot.
It was great. I mean, I love doing things like that because it's like they're running the show.
Yeah.
But it was a really fun afternoon.
That's really fun. That's great. Okay, so last question. Do you think that movie theaters are gonna be around for the next
I do
10, 20 years? 50
do
years?
Because I think it's a little akin to like live music. Like at a certain point, people started to understand that the experiencing live music was an experience you could only get by being there. You couldn't get it online. Even watching a live streamed concert, you couldn't get it. Actually being there and seeing a band that you love play for you is an experience that is completely unique. And I think there's something akin to that in the movies. Like being in a room full of people all experiencing something for the first time. Like I didn't watch all of Hedwig today, but I did watch the first half hour, 40 minutes, because I get off on seeing people, hear the music, experience the story, etc., especially something that visceral. And you can't get it any other way.
Yeah.
So, as I was saying about the Metrograph, which is the theater closest to me, that, like sometimes on Wednesday, if I know my partner's going to be gone for the weekend, I'll be like, oh, what are they playing this weekend? And I'll see, they're doing a John Ford retrospective, or, they're going to show Nashville. And then everything's sold out. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you know, and it's because those, you know, a lot of people are just like, that's how I want to spend my Saturday.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
with Robert Altman or you know, John Wayne.
I mean, what else are you gonna do on a
Exactly.
Saturday? That's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much.
My
This has been
pleasure.
an absolute pleasure.